He loves watching all zombie movies that are possibly out there.
If there is a zombie apocalypse, he's going to die first. His apartment in New York was called Lakshmi Guest House.
The names, do you see? Please, if you ever have anything, do not go to Zeva for the names.
Hello everyone, I am sitting with two very charming men and extremely funny and extremely witty designers, architects. Hi Josefa.
Hello.
And hi Jassim.
Hi.
Here's Josefa Rangwala and Jassim Pirani from the Muse Lab in Bombay. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation, just making time for it. Couple of words or phrases that come to my mind: eclectic, whimsy, colorful, eccentric, and it's a little bit of everything. And it's literally like a breath of fresh air because not a lot of people are experimenting like this and pushing the boundaries. How do you feel about your design style, and how has this become, for the lack of a better word, a signature style?
Do you want to take a shot at this?
When we started our entire practice, or it's part of the process, right? So for us, the process, it's very important to kind of understand your client, or more than understanding, I think like we're telling their story. I think we've somehow gotten into that process where we imbibe their story and then we are kind of narrating it. And that's where it also allows us to kind of experiment with different styles, for a lack of better word, or different typologies, if I may say so. It was very organic. It was not planned that, let's start a practice where everything will follow a certain palette or a certain style. And nothing wrong with that. But I feel like for us, it was with the clients where we kind of were like, okay, they are to inhabit that space. So we didn't want to enforce something upon them. That is where we started working with different styles. So that's why I think every project varies in that sense. And even if we do two Art Deco apartments, it's not necessarily they're going to look the same.
The other thing also, just to add to that, is that in some way, and people have come and told us that, we can figure out that this is a Muse Lab project.
100%.
So like Jassim said, that it's not about us imposing ourselves as architects onto a client, because at the end, they have to live there. But at the same time, we love having fun, I think as a studio, it's a very, very open studio. There's a lot of engagement with all the designers. So I think it's also about bringing our personality into every design, and which is why you will always find elements, cues, moments within spaces, even if it is an ism that is as serious as Art Deco or Art Nouveau. But we try to make it a little bit more fun so that when a person is using that space, they discover that, because a lot of these details are not experienced through 3D visuals, but when you're in that space, you will experience that. I think that's been like the motto of the practice.
Isn't that the beauty of it? People think it's very easy to use color or art and patterns but I think as designers and creative people, that's where maximum restraint has to come in, because it's very easy to go overboard. How do you guys do it? What is that point where enough of color has been used, enough of texture, enough of art has been used? How's that process?
I think he stops me and I stop him.
No, now it's...
Is that why it's a partnership?
And it's reached a point where recently in one of the projects, we had to tell the client, enough, this is too much color.
Really?
Yeah, and the client was like, but y'all are Muse Lab, where is the color?
That's where he came
Yeah, and I'm like, this is a lot, even for us.
Muse Lab is saying this
Yeah.
is a lot, it's a lot of
Yeah,
color.
yeah. So I think it always, starts where one element, in terms of like, say if the floor is the hero, then you keep it at that, Yeah. Yes, you layer it with a few more elements where maybe, somewhere an upholstery has a certain texture, or which kind of is slightly contrasting, or a different scale. So you have to play with the scales for it to work together as well.
Right.
Otherwise it clashes as well. When it starts going, so say if it was on the floor and then it starts climbing elsewhere, that's when you have to tell yourself, like you need to hold back.
I will not deny the fact that we have made mistakes in, sometimes also going overboard, and I think it's been part of the learning process, where when we look at a home in totality, we might feel that one room has just gone completely off. But I think a lot of it also has to do with constant conversations with clients, and there is a point where either a client works with you or a client gets way too involved in the project.
Right.
And I think that projects that have been successful for us have been where clients have worked with us, and then it's a collective vision. At the end, they also have to live there, so we need to respect it. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's where that restraint comes in. It's about us also stepping in and understanding, like Jasim said, that stop at a certain point, hero an element, and then basically look at it in totality.
Creative people come together.
Yeah.
There are bound to be good days, bad days, creative blocks, and you look at something differently, you look at something differently. How's that relationship like, and how do you overcome those moments? Tell us a little more about the two of you and your relationship as partners.
So, I mean, I think, of course, that's bound to happen.
Right.
Two different people, two different minds. And I think that is what we sort of build on as well, right? It's on building on each other's strengths and also stepping in when, one is weaker in
Correct.
a certain aspect. But yes, so there are moments when we disagree, and then, if we disagree, there's complete silence. And then, we're like, okay, we will come back to this discussion, because then both of us are processing, right?
I process faster though.
Yeah,
Really?
too quickly to react.
Is this okay?
Yeah,
It's okay.
it's too soon to react.
Impulsive.
Yes, because for me it's like I need to look at it from every angle, or maybe my processor is really slow and I need to upgrade it. But it's like I take my time, and then yes, there are times when I realize that okay, that made sense. So then it comes down to, you need to revisit what was that conversation that you had with the client, that story, right?
Correct.
What is working for that? What
Right.
is the context of it?
That's the compass,
Right?
basically.
There are times we won't say that, either of us, we may want to kind of bring in a certain form or a certain idea
Right.
as well, right? Because we also want to explore that.
Right.
But we have to again look at it from the lens that, does it work for this or not?
Correct.
And that's where the 2 days.
But I think like right from the start, the first 3-4 months were difficult when we started the practice, because I also had a stint at Hafiz Contractor. Before that, when I was working in Atlanta, I came from a very different school of thought,
Correct.
and Jasim came from a different school of thought. And of course, like he said, we're two different individuals. So the first 4 months is when it took a lot of time to I think get this marriage working.
Right.
But I think now we're all set. Like, we know that who has to sleep on which side of the bed. Now our conversations are beyond design. It's also about marketing. It's also about legalities. It's about accounts. It's about managing a team. So I think our conversations have also matured as the practice has grown.
More holistic in nature.
More holistic, yeah. So it's not just because, see, at the end it's just about Muse Lab.
Correct.
This is our baby.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if we have a marriage certificate or something, but yeah, it's our, yeah,
The rent lease.
The rent lease.
the rent lease, yeah, that is.
You are that.
I think it is in the interest of Muse Labs. So whatever, that's why I think that respect for each other, not just as friends, not just as individuals, not just as partners, has reached to a point where we know that both of us are thinking just for Muse Lab.
I want to talk a little bit about art, and I think we've seen collectively, whether it's art or design, the last 5 years, 3 years have seen a massive shift, and there's a lot of consumption, whether it's through buying, whether it's through content. There's just so much consumption. What do you feel about this shift and this thing that's happening?
Art kind of is an expression again of people's feelings and thoughts and all of that. So it's always interesting to see what one person likes over the other. India currently, we're just at the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to explore, and with all the various art shows that happen within the country, it's really nice. It's a lot of artists that I'm following are Indian artists actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of our clients are not as informed about art. When they look at art, it's more about how beautiful it is, but without really understanding the backstory. And maybe I also come from that school of thought. It takes a lot for me to understand art. But I think, like Jasim said, that there is that little shift that we are seeing, where people are appreciating art and are also willing to pay,
Correct.
For the kind of work that the artist has created.
What kind of art do both of you like as creative minds?
I like a lot of illustrative art. So starting with a master like F.N. Souza to, like, if you see today Sajid Wajid Sheikh's
Right.
work, you may not relate to the story, but for me it's not about the story, it's more about the gestures and the strokes of the artwork.
Right.
I also like someone like Kulu Ojha, who works just with paper, and when you look at that work, it tells me discipline and precision. Like it's all art paper that's hand cut and layered. So it gets a slight three-dimensionality to it.
Right.
I also like M. Pravat's work, which is where he uses a lot of brick and also brick dust. That's the kind of work that I am.
You resonate with. What about you?
Yeah.
I think even for me, illustrative art is something like I really like the works of Kamil Valala.
Right.
I love how she has taken her style and either use it on even sidewalks and zebra crossings and buildings. That's something that I really love. I love the work of Jaime Ion.
Yes.
I think that's very relatable to our practice and whatnot,
yeah, exactly,
and
it's
just
very relatable to
love the
practice.
whimsy in his work. I love button masala.
Okay.
I think what he's doing with textile,
Right.
and also giving it a form, and just with this simple I think detail of a button, and how he's creating garments and textiles and whatnot. And I think at this point in time, I'm in love with all ceramicists.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think anything to do with ceramics.
You know, one thing that I think all of us will agree is the lines have blurred, in the sense architecture is moving into fashion, fashion is moving into design, design is moving into product, the creative walls have come down, everything's blurred at this point of time, which is good and bad too. What do you both feel about it?
I think it's exciting because at the heart of it, everyone's a creative person. What you're trying to do is you're just trying to apply that creativity to a different scale, and it's projected, I mean, whether it's a garment that someone's wearing or whether it's a space that someone's living in. For us also, which is why, I mean, we are constantly looking at opportunities to dabble with all these different mediums. In fact, we are trying to pitch for a restaurant in Kandla itself where we just don't want to do the interiors, but we also want to design the menu. We want to design what they're going to wear. We want to design the tableware.
It's also important that when you're starting a certain project, right, there's always sometimes an inspiration. So the inspiration doesn't have to come from from architecture itself.
Correct.
It can be an outside influence, which is not necessarily architecture, but another art form possibly, or something maybe which is not an art form. So when we approach them, the first question, usually typically clients share images that this is what.
They put it
so
together.
so we tell them that, let's revisit. How about you share a poetry you like? Or maybe you share an image of a rug that you like. That doesn't mean that we're going to put that rug in the home, but that tells a lot. The colors you like, the textures you like, the shapes, and all of that. And they look at us puzzled, but we've had, at least 2 out of 10 who've kind of come to us with briefs that are very interesting, that are not necessarily, that we want our house to look like this.
And I know you've just had a sneak peek around at the store. If you have to give me one word for Hands as a brand, what would that word be?
I think it's very ethereal for me.
I think it has a slight legacy-like feel to it.
Products, games, homes, spaces. If you have to now pick up another category to experiment and bring your magic, which is the category that you'll pick?
It would be nice to start with a little bed and breakfast.
Oh, lovely.
Where everything from that, if not designed, everything is curated at least, like from the tea that you get in your bed, to like what you experience outside when you walk out onto the porch or the deck. So I think that's what we want to do. It's been a dream, but we need to put a date to it because then only it'll happen.
Please don't do it somewhere in Bombay. Like, do it in a nice exotic place so that we can come.
Bombay, there is no space.
Yeah, please don't do anything in Bombay.
But funny thing is that when we decided to do something together as friends, when we were traveling in Mexico, and we were like,
came up?
No. The idea then was
at that time there was no practice in
there was no practice.
Okay.
We were like, we're never working together.
Okay.
We are friends. Let's stay friends
Let's keep it at
and let's keep it at that. But we had decided to start a store where we wanted to sell like very cool T-shirts. And that store would magically convert into a lounge at night. So that was the idea.
We had a name for it also.
Which was?
It was called a warehouse.
But there's a
But house was spelled Jauz. Because we were in Mexico,
Yes,
and then
yes.
we were like, in India it will be called warehouse.
Yes. Thank you so much. I've had the loveliest and amazing time talking to the two of you.
Same here.
And better more off camera because you guys are more funny and witty.